Hello, everybody. My name is Leah Granger, and you are watching Curtain Call, a weekly interview series with powerful women in the arts, presented by Fab Collab with the generous support of Canadian Heritage. We speak with all kinds of women all around the world, and today we're very lucky and very happy to have an incredible singer, musician of Persian flamenco. Farnaz Ohadi will be joining us. I'm just going to invite her right now. She's someone, oh, wow, hello, you popped up quickly. Welcome, Farnaz. We're so happy to have you here with us today. I've wanted to do this with you for a long time, and it feels like a great moment to connect. So I've known Farnaz for, I don't know how long it's been, probably 10, 15 years, I would say. It's always longer than you would think as we get older. Like, you're like, it's
It
been
has
five or
been,
6 years. No, it's
yeah.
been 20. So we met, it probably has, yeah. It probably has been like, yeah, something like that. So we met in Vancouver. Farnaz is an incredible singer, born in Iran, but been in Canada for a very long time and practicing many different kinds of music, but found her way to flamenco and then developed as a practitioner of Persian flamenco, which is really a genre that you're at the forefront of. So we're
Thank you,
so
Leah. Thanks for
excited
having
to
me.
have you with us.
Looking
Welcome,
forward to that.
Farnaz. So
I'm in Sevilla,
where are you
Spain.
speaking to
It's
us from today?
5:30 in the afternoon. I moved here
Amazing. So,
last year
so how
and
long have you
then
been
came
living
back to
there?
Canada for about 2 months and came back again in September. I'll be here for sure for another year. Yeah. Yeah.
It's amazing. So tell us a little bit about your journey as an artist, starting kind of from when you were a young person and what it was like to sort of find your voice and discover that this was like that being an artist was something that
Well,
you wanted to
a lot of
pursue
middle
as
class
a youth.
families in Iran, regardless of the restrictions that I grew up with, put their children in music lessons. I included, I was in piano lessons since I could remember, maybe I was 4 or 5. So I played classical music until I left Iran. So that's almost like a lifetime. But I never pursued it as a thing. It was just an outlet for a long time. I remember when things would get heavy during the day, I would hide under my piano and it would just be my best friend. So it was really heartbreaking to leave it behind when we left. Again, never thought I would ever pursue music as a life pursuit. But when I came to Canada, I went to a specialty high school and there was no space except entering as an art student. So I entered as a pianist and I got in and I had to have a second instrument. So I figured maybe I'll sing a little bit. I've been singing all my life, a little here and there. So I started opera lessons. Again, just as a hobby, very involved hobby until I came to Vancouver and I started dancing flamenco where I met you
Mhm.
and the beautiful flamenco community in Vancouver. So again, for a long time, it was a very, very involved, intense hobby more than anything. But as time went on, and I would say, I arrived in Canada in 1990, and I called myself a professional musician in 2016. So I'll tell you the long, long journey that it took. And um, it was never meant to be something that I would pursue in a commercial way. It was two things. One was the scientific side of it. Could I combine these two genres together? Could I put such melodic language into such a percussive kind of sound? And also that, it was, things were bubbling up. I have been away from Iran for so long. It's almost 20 years. And there were protests
Mhm.
constantly. There were things like things were just constantly getting worse. And even my tagline on my Instagram says that my music is the sound of a woman being fed up. That's the best translation I can think of, because that's what it is. It's basically all my songs are protest songs. They're just very personal protest songs. And I never assumed or dreamt that anybody else would relate to them. But then once I had my first concert, my first album, uh, that suddenly that was not the case. Suddenly there were people who could relate. And then I was like, maybe there's something here. Maybe it's worth pursuing and exploring. So it's been a long, long, long journey. Yeah.
Can you tell me about how you came to the place where you were like, I want to combine these two things? Like, this is a thing that makes sense to do? Because I feel like, that's not immediately obvious, and then it
Oh,
clearly works.
thank you. That's
Like,
great
do you,
because it
well,
wasn't
in
working
my
for the
opinion,
longest
obviously.
time. It really wasn't. And the thing is, they don't necessarily have a they always have conversations. Like there's a lot of times that you see in Eastern Indian music as well. There's groups of very skilled musicians sit side by side and have conversations, and no one really tries to really make it one voice. And I assumed it was just because no one thought of it, but the truth of it is, it's extremely difficult because like as I said, it's a very, very melodic language. It's very open. Poetry is everything. In flamenco, as you know, poetry kind of comes secondary to the rhythm. A word could be stretched so much and repeated segments of it could be repeated so much that you don't even know what you're singing at the end. But it doesn't matter because the percussion is there, the rhythm is there. Everybody's like, ole! So everybody's very happy. But in Persian music, and I would assume in Eastern, Indian music, for example, is one of the other ones that are really fused quite a bit, and Arabic, poetry is very important. And the reason I went into it is because there was a crossroad that I was at. I had to either move to Spain and my children were little, or I had to sort of do something else or leave flamenco behind because I'd sort of exhausted all my skills at being a cover singer of all the singers that, yes.
I hear that. I
So there
know
was
that, but I know
the
the
one,
feeling.
yeah, exactly.
You're like,
So
come
you
on,
sort of
do
become
something
this very
original.
skilled at covering someone else's art. And then I sort of decide, am I going to be always a cover artist, or do I have something really inside to be warranting pursuing and becoming a solo artist and becoming, an actual singer-songwriter? So when I sat down to kind of explore this, suddenly, as I said, floodgates open. And then again, I truly never had songs in me. There's singer-songwriters from children age. They have a guitar and they just sing. I never had any of those ideas. But once I sat down to do it, thinking, oh, it's going to be easy, and that becoming a 6-year journey until my first album was produced with Liron. He was around and he took interest in the project. And it took hammering out single word by single word, song by song, going from my Persian teacher to a Spanish teacher. And it was, but then, so when you say it works, I cannot tell you what a beautiful compliment that is, because it has taken so long and it was not working for the longest time. Because my Persian teacher was like, if you go out and sing these beautiful sacred words this way, you cannot tell people you're my student. And if and I would go to Lucas Ortega was my teacher at the time. And he was like, well, I don't know what you're saying, but this is no longer flamenco because you're switching the accent from the beginning to the middle of the word and so on. So yeah, it wasn't working for the longest time. And now people think that the songs existed all the time, and they haven't. So that's the highest compliment I could ever receive. Thank you for that. Yeah.
It's interesting yeah, like that difficulty comes from the fact that there's such like a deep respect for each of
Yes.
the art forms. Like both of them, it means like way more than just like la la la, like a song. So as you're like trying to bring two things together, you're kind of like breaking each of them a little bit, and like both sides are like,
Yes.
what are you doing? But it
I
seems like
have
you've
my
really
point has always been
found a
to respect
way.
both, but kind of say, hey, listen, I like my mom and dad, but I'm the kid. I have something to say. I have my own personality. I got something. My end of the day maybe it sounds egotistical, but the thing is, what I'm doing, neither the Spaniards can do, and the Iranians cannot do either, because bless their heart, there's a huge flamenco community in Iran, very skilled guitarists. They can't do what I do. But just because I've been exposed to Persian music, basically 20 years, the first 20 years of my life, and the second 20 years of my life, I've been involved with flamenco. So, it is what I can do. This is my
Mhm.
special skill, and I came to it a little bit late in life. But yeah, I mean, I'm very happy to acknowledge that there is this highway of Persian music and highway of flamenco music, 8 lanes each, very established, and I'm in the middle, kind of going like making a little lane that nobody ever really needed. But here I am taking my time, like take my breaks and then go back at it again. And some people follow me or they don't. It doesn't matter. It's my path. I'm very happy to be like in between all these highways, and I got my own little path working as I go. So it's very personal. It is extremely personal path. So it's, yeah.
Um, Whenever Either one of your followers or our followers, Katie Leo says, anything new takes
Thank
time
you.
for people to
Thank you.
understand, but we enjoy your
Yeah.
new way of singing.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So what have you been like? I see you have like a lot of followers on Instagram. Have you
Yeah, I
found
was actually
like a
looking at my
following back in
analytics
Iran?
yesterday because the tone of the reactions and conversations and
Mhm.
interactions have changed, and I noticed that actually this my second one after Canada seems to be Iran, and I perhaps it is because of what's happening in Iran, and I'm as deeply as I can be involved, I share quite a bit. My approach is to translate, because there's plenty of people trying to expand it in Farsi language, but my hope is to translate and make sense of things that are happening. And it seems to draw a certain number of people to me. And that's always been my case anyway. All my songs have always, strove to translate them. They're universal issues that, of course, as Iranians, we deal with a lot of it, a lot
Mhm.
more of it, a lot heavier, bundle of
Yeah.
it, but a lot of it is also about hoping for a future for our kids or for ourselves, to be able to actually have hope, to have a decent life, to leave the house and assume that you come back home safe and sound. So there's simple things. They're about immigration. A lot of people now move around. It doesn't have to be some Middle Eastern person moving to the new land. People in Europe are constantly moving. We know Davide moved from Italy to Canada. So we all have this universal uprooting that we go through, universal settlement of our children that we need to, hopes for, dreams for our future. So a lot of the things I say are common themes. So yeah, universal. So,
Yeah.
used to be a
Universal.
lot of majority, silent majority. I would get views, but not necessarily interaction. But things have changed since the last 3 weeks. There's been a lot of interaction. Yeah. So
Yeah. Well, maybe speaking about that, can you tell us a little bit about what it means to be a Persian
it
woman
means
singer?
everything. It means everything. I heard a lot of no's growing up. Bless my parents. They tried very hard, but they obviously were scared about all the things that could have happened to me so easily. And we see it now today. The women are at the forefront of what's happening, with the incredible support of the men behind them, the new generation. But there is no discrimination. They just mow them down, and they're 16, 17, 14-year olds, and they don't really care. And they're bullies, and they're horrible, and the bullying, on the surface, it looks like it's just a piece of cloth on your head, but it represents so much. It represents so much aspiration to control and shut down more than 50% of the people of population of Iranians. And it manifests in many different ways. Artistically, it manifests in the fact that women cannot perform or record or have solo careers. If they're teaching someone
Mhm.
as a vocal coach, they cannot even demonstrate to the person how they should be singing. They cannot touch the body. They can't do any of these things. And for like to have permission to sing, I feel like that's like the most fundamental thing. It's like a bird, you shove it in a cage, not just any bird, like a bird song, and you say you cannot sing. And that's what's been, I mean, again, that's like the tip of the iceberg, but obviously that's very personal to me. So I really am not exaggerating when I say, again, I've been singing for the last 20 years. And obviously, since 2016, I've been on stage quite a bit. And, I was at Kino for a long time before that, singing in Spanish, good or bad, but I was trying. I was even in this small
Mhm.
little community stage like Kino, I was extremely conscious of the fact that look at what you're doing. Look how many are behind you, wanting, hoping, wishing they could do this, and they can't. I was one of them. I was one of them for all my life, never assuming I could and I can. And now look, like I just keep at it, and it only gets better. And I'm extremely conscious of that privilege. And of course, I owe that quite a bit to Canada, but I also recognize the tenacity of Iranian women that just don't give up. If they can, they'll keep fighting. Yeah.
Mhm. Do you think if like that it would have been something you might have discovered earlier if you had been like kind of like been if it
Maybe.
had been presented as an option like since you were a young person? I think a lot of people don't even like I didn't know that like yeah, it's just incredible that something like
Yeah.
such a basic like human activity
Yeah. I mean, it's
is
interesting. You just had a really
forbidden.
gorgeous project and you were exploring the ideas of you as a young person and being drawn into it. And what does it mean? How do you had born into it? Like, I really loved your project because of that. And I can relate to that. At the same
Mhm.
time, what I'm doing now, I could not have done if I was 20 years younger. And the subject matters that I choose, I would not have been
Mhm.
interested in, perhaps had I been grown up here or in a systematic society that was systematically supporting me in the arts. So again, I never really had any aspirations to make music. I'm a huge consumer of music and the arts, and I support as much as I can, but I was never interested in creating music on my own. And it only really came from the fact that there was so much frustration behind it, and there were things that I needed to say, and I felt that there were not enough Iranian women able to say it. And the vehicle of flamenco in particular is important because flamenco, to me, as you know, is extremely free. Like, it's actually encouraged to be ugly. You know, the say it, the fail. Like, the uglier it is, the more privileged you feel, because you're able to abandon and allow the Holy Spirit to descend. You know, it's like, so that's what it is. And you will never see that among the Persian women who sing, because it just, we're not as a society raised to be that free, to allow that much abandonment and ugliness, in our performance. Usually very, so there was that. So I don't think I could have done that had I again started
Mhm.
20 years ago. I would not have the courage or the wisdom to not care, and to really focus on what I need to do and what needs to come out of my existence. And like, the very last album I did was a live album. We did it because it was during COVID and had to release a live one. I don't know if you've heard this song. It's called the Chain Breakers, and it's a mad cigiri. It starts at the macho speed and it just gets faster. And I basically, it's like rock and roll. And I had to sit back and say, who do I think I am to sing this song? Like, what are you doing? Like, you just, I throat sing and I'm like screaming and it's all punk. And at the end, I was like, whatever. If I don't do it now, when am I going to do it? So there's beauty in being a little bit older to do what I do. I would have felt,
Totally.
I don't have imposter syndrome anymore. Let's put it that way. And it's very freeing. And I think I would have had that in 20 years ago. I no longer suffer from any of that. I just do my thing. And I'm like, don't like it? That's okay. Move on. Yeah. Yeah.
I'm getting there. I'm getting
It's
there.
scary.
Getting there. It's the journey. What has it been? Yeah. What has it been like for you in these recent weeks, like
Uh,
as an artist living outside of Iran and seeing what's
it's
happening with
hard.
women
And
there
for the
right
first week,
now?
especially when things were becoming very tense, and when Masa Amini was killed. I shouldn't say died. She was basically murdered, followed up with many, many more. I often wondered, sorry, it's my dog. Often wondered what caused this particular case to really become the thing. But very quickly, we all understood that it was like one little straw that broke the camel's back. And then the outpouring of arts that followed. A lot of my stories are just basically illustrations and images that people are creating, because everybody's sort of dealing with the whole thing in one way or another. Um, Obviously, I'm in awe of, especially of the younger high school students who are in the street constantly. You know, I remember this conversation with my mom. I was 15 and I was like, you know what, this is driving me crazy and I want to go on and spray paint slogans on the walls. And she had to really restrain me. Like, she had to say, you will not come back. And there was no support of it. And we're talking 25, 30 years ago. And now that's all I do. And I understand it and I get it. And I understand
Mhm.
that fearlessness, regardless of what's happening around them, the very real possibility of death, but they're doing it anyway because they feel they're untouchable, even in
Mhm.
that society. So it's beautiful, it's admirable. The artist that's pouring out, it's inspiring.
Yeah, tell me
Oh,
about
it's
some of the
super
art that you've seen
inspiring,
come out
very,
of the
very
movement.
inspiring. A lot of music. The one that was like the most important one is the song Baraye, which means for. It's a culmination of this. There was this trend that in Twitter, all the women and all the men sort of started tweeting, I'm revolting because of this, like all the personal little reasons that they were sort of talk about why I'm doing this. And this guy, Shervin, put it all together late at night in his bedroom, put this beautiful, gorgeous song together called Baraye. I recommend everyone to go and check it out. If you don't remember the name, just look for the name Shervin. And S
How do you spell
yeah,
that?
it's
I'm just curious. I'm gonna
Shehrin,
add it.
Shervin. So that's his name. And if you look for that, or the song is called Baraye, and you're welcome. And then basically
Thank
overnight,
you.
it was viewed like 40 million times, and it became this song of the uprising.
Wow.
And I should have listened to it at least maybe 200 times, crying every single time. I didn't think it would affect me as much, but I hear it and I, clamp up because it's so sweet. And obviously his voice is really sweet, but the way he put it all together, and it's not even about human rights always. It's not necessarily about women coverings. It's about being able to kiss your love, in the street, being able to show PD, like hold hands, being able to like not be worried about the environment. Like all of these things are political in Iran. And immediately within a couple of days, he disappeared. He was arrested and no one knew where he was for a whole week. But his song just blossomed everywhere, probably because despite them, but the song is gorgeous. So you hear it everywhere, and there's efforts now to nominate it for Grammy. It's the first ever year I think they have a protest song category, so it's like perfect. So it shows you the power of music.
Wow.
It really does show you. And then now there's been efforts on them to like rewrite the song with their own lyrics, which is completely like laughable. And then people translate it in multiples of songs. They're singing it, they're adding to it, they're adding bass to it and other instruments, and it's just life of its own. And people play it late at night in the darkness from their window in the streets. I mean, it seems so simple, but it's driving them crazy. And I grew up actually on the music of Victor Jara from Chile, and and I don't know if you know his story, but he also made beautiful songs about everyday living, working class. And at the end, when he was arrested, they broke his hands, and they said we would never be able to sing again. And they, some people say they cut off his tongue. So you would think just a simple singer, that's all he did. But it shows you the power of the arts. And all of these protest songs, all of these beautiful art that's coming out, these are legacies of this, beautiful feminist inspired modern revolution that people all are asking is, the slogan is woman, life, freedom. I mean, how wholesome is that? My God. Yeah, it's been incredible. Yeah, it's been pretty incredible to witness and, not to feel so useless. It's a bit hard being far away, feel safe and know what they're dealing with. But, there's also power in, like, there's millions of Iranians outside of Iran. There was simultaneous demonstrations, as you must know. And it's incredible to see how sort of everybody's kind of holding on to one corner. In Vancouver, especially in Canada, there's a big haven of government people coming and kind of laundering their money and planting their family here just in case. So they've been actually quite a bit, exposed. So in London, there's issues there with like entities from the government who are active trying to promote the government. So they've been exposed. So each person, each group of Iranians around the world, suddenly they all come together. And I truly think it's because of that slogan, because there's no political entity that's taking over. It's purely about desire to honor women and honor life and honors then freedom. So, and art, we need art. Art is going to be very important once the rebuilding starts, and I have no doubt that it will. Just a matter of when, not how or when. If
Yeah. It's really fascinating to see like the powerful role
yeah,
of the arts in the movement, and that these songs and these images and stuff have been at the forefront and driving it forward. But then of course it's also just like the number of women in the street. Has anything like this ever happened before, like since the revolution? Has there been like a
not
movement of women?
statistically. There's been a
Like
lot of
to my
videos
knowledge,
of
there
women
hasn't been.
trying, like the civil disobedience of like not wearing your hijab the way they request to. Even like when they say don't show any and show a little bit. Like I lived like that. Everybody, we were not allowed to show any hair, not allowed to wear thin, I don't know, socks. They were not allowed to wear certain length of cover-ups. We did it anyway. There were little things that we kept pushing. And You know, I don't want to generalize, but a lot of men, for the sake of peace and probably fear from what will happen to them, constantly will be urging us, just go along with it. Just go along. Why are you asking? You're basically asking for trouble. But Iranian women never gave up. They just kept doing it. And now it's like after 42 years, it's done. It's over. They're just done. They're just done. And because they're together, there's less fear. And, you know, like the slogans that they shout now, it would be basically instant death when I was growing. But, you know, we needed to go through that. Religion in general cannot mix with politics, and that we needed to serve this 43 years to really internalize that. And I think Europeans in the Western communities had that in the Middle Ages when they understood that the church had the absolute power. And, you know, things were not always the best. There was, you know, the least of which is the witch burning, basically, sort of like almost equivalent to what was happening in Iran. Anybody who was like, oh, she is a witch, or she's, you know, they would label them something else and get rid of them, right? So we needed this 43 years to really, really internalize that religion cannot mix with politics. And I'm delighted to see that women are at the forefront of it, because, you know, it's been too long that men sort of ran the world. Maybe it's nice to, you know,
It's amazing to see this coming from the women, you know,
would say,
because it's like they're the ones that have been suffering the most, and like it makes sense that they're the ones that are like,
I would say
enough,
men
you know,
suffered quite a bit
the
as
time
well,
is
just
now.
in a different way. I mean, civil rights, they're denied women, so the suffering is just different flavor. But at the end of the day, it was always about control. One of the most common comments I get now is like, see you in Iran in a concert. I mean, that is just so gorgeous. It's just hope. Yes, there will be a common day that I will, you know, I'm hopeful now, which I never was. It's been 30 plus years that I left, and I was like, that was it. My grandmother passed away. I couldn't go back from all the things that I've done, the interviews. I knew I would never be going back, but then suddenly there is this blossom of hope. And who knows? Yeah, next concert will be in Iran. Yeah, it will be amazing.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
So what, for like people that are here and watching all of these things happen, like from afar, from Canada or from elsewhere in the world, like what can people do? Is it just like having awareness,
Well,
or
the
like is there
simplest
action
thing
people
that
can
usually
take?
costs nothing is to add the hashtag Masa Amini. And I would add it here. And I tell you why, because it is already making incredible history. And, you know, denied or not, this is forever going to be the, basically the hashtag that broke the internet, you know, Masa Amini. So that's one way to say it. And you just randomly can just put it anywhere. Anybody talks about anything about women's issues, just add a comment and just say Masa Amini. Just add, like, it's already in 2 billion or something, like some crazy number. So it's already in the books of history. That's the least you can do. I would say if you have someone Iranian in your among your friends, maybe give them a call or a text. Say, hey, you doing? You doing okay? Just that means a lot. There's obviously actual actions you can do. There were demonstrations in 150 plus cities around the world. If something is happening, if you feel inclined, please go. Maybe take a few photos and share it with that hashtag. You can do that. The thing about it is that as soon as the hub of it, the eyes of the world turn away from Iran, the killing will begin. And it's already bad, and it will get horrendously horrible. So that's what it is that, you know, and for a while I was getting pushed back a little bit because, you know, the Ukraine is very much in trouble and they're really suffering. And then just yesterday or today, there was an attack on Ukraine cities, on students, on like schools and stuff. And the rockets are from Iran. The rockets are Iranian rockets. And this is not, I'm not making this up. This is essentially just said that. So recognize that what is Iran is doing in the region is actually affecting the entire world. Obviously, immediately, all the surrounding, what's happening in Iraq, in Syria, in Palestine, all the conflict in Palestine and Israel is supported by Iran. It's to their benefit to be unstable. But then it has longer reaching. You know, they shut down the Ukraine plane. There's conspiracies that it was supported by Russia.
That's right.
They're allies of Russia. So, you know, it's not an isolated country. What's happening there affects the entire world. So take ownership of the fact that this revolution is everybody's revolution, beside the feminine side of it. In fact, if the regime changes in Iran, on obviously for many, many years, it would be a little bit unstable, but it will not be what it is today. And what it is today is an agent of chaos and horribleness and death and destruction for the price of them staying in power. They're willing to do anything. And that also means setting fire to the world if they have to. Yeah. So that's another level of involvement you can. And like, there's, there's parallels everywhere. You can draw parallels. You can share something and say, hey, this is a parallel to what's that. So there's levels, but the basic one is that share the hashtag, hug an Iranian. And if you want, keep reading, keep sharing. That'll be awesome.
Yeah. And support Iranian artists too at this time, I think.
Consume the arts. Be very mindful of requests for funding. There's no possibility of sending funding to Iran. There's been a few fraudulent fundraising efforts. Do not pay attention to any of that. Be very careful about that. And other than that, just support in any way you can. Yeah, if you don't want to be political, if really that bothers you, just share the art. The art is gorgeous. All you need to do is go through my Instagram. If you don't want to go through mine, there's just say illustration Iran Masa, Masa, what's her last name? Amini. Crazy. Masa Amini, and just do that and see the art and share that. Make little posts about that. Don't want to commit to a post, to a story. You don't have to really commit in a big way. It doesn't have to take away from your piece of your life. And and if it's too much, it's too much. That's okay. Nobody expects anything, but just recognize that this is not just us. This is not just some obscure country, Iran, in the other side of the world with brown people, yelling and killing. This really, truly does affect the entire world. So once that isn't internalized, it's easier to sort of become involved in any way.
Is this affecting your music?
Well, no, my songs have always been protest songs, either outwardly protest songs, like I sang about freedom. I was just thinking of how to share. I sang about rebuilding my homeland. This is 2016, 2017 music. So there's nothing new there. Yeah.
You have it all locked and loaded.
But I am working on an album, and the album is coming out hopefully in March 2023, International Women's Day. So it's coming out, and it's a combination of many things. It's mostly love songs, which I didn't ever really focus on before, but love is an act of rebellion in Iran. So I'm not really spinning that. It is the truth. Like, you cannot love freely. Obviously, there are no gays in Iran, as they say, and there is no transgender rights, and there's no gay rights. In fact, as we speak, there's 2 or 3 gay right activists who are on death row, and with the pressure of what's been happening, they stopped the prosecution, but no one knows what's happened to them. So there's none of that. You cannot love freely. You obviously cannot have PDA in the streets. You cannot go, and necessarily, like, divorce is not allowed until the husband grants it. So there's, again, love is a rebellious thing in Iran. It's not, it's you would think that's the most simple human rights. They deny it all as much as they can. They deny it all. Yeah.
Thank you. We're so lucky to have you creating this music, and that's amazing. So 2023, everybody stay tuned for that. And follow Farnaz and pay attention to the things that she's saying. And yeah, you're just like a great source of just like sharing your own work, but then also the work of other
in the
artists.
Captions, that is very, very important. There's a friend, Arm20216, he's talking about Zahra Nabipur. I believe this is the Zahra that was killed almost 15 years ago now. She was a photographer, a celebrated photographer out of Montreal with dual citizenship, went to Iran, and she was taking they say she was taking photographs from the prison, Evin, which is the most famous prison there. And she was arrested, and she was a middle-aged woman. She must have talked back. She was brought up a little bit more longer in Montreal, and she was completely destroyed. Like, I don't want to even list of the things that they did to her. And she was a Canadian citizen. So that was that's what I mean by the fear of the arts. It expands every photographers. In fact, the biggest joke right now is that the whole political side of the Evin prison, it includes lawyers, writers, photographers, dancers, singers, people who just were like, social media activists, people who work with children, children's rights, women rights activists, environmentalists. That's all them. So basically, it's just basically an Iran. Rest of us are just sort of drawing, so they can just make a little tiny there, and it will be a perfectly beautiful cross section of everything. Oh, including winners of Olympiads of math and Olympiads of physics around the world. They arrest them and shove them in prison. They give them like 15, 20-year prison sentences. So just that manpower alone that's rotting away in prison, if they are freed as they should be, there will be an incredible evolution in what's going to happen in society. So yeah, thank you for bringing that up, Zahra. If that is the woman that he's talking about, her art is beautiful and it lives on, and she has 2 grown sons who live in Montreal. So yeah, there are very few. So do that, support the arts of Iranians. Yeah.
Do you think you could share just a little excerpt of your music with us today?
Sure.
So we can just get a little taste.
Yeah. There's a song I would like to share. Okay, there's 2 songs. One of them I shared recently, so I won't do that again because it's on my Instagram, but one I haven't shared is basically called Red. It means the catch line is work, bread, freedom. So it's like basic human needs. So it kind of goes like this. It's in Bolerias, by the way. It's in Bolerias, flamenco lovers, and it's based on a really famous Bolerias by Marina Heredia. So I'm going to sing a little bit of that, okay? دست کوچه رو گرفتیم، دست کوچه رو گرفتیم با همین دستای خالی، دستای خالی، دستای خالی. قد کشیدیم روبروی این، قد کشیدیم روبروی این سکوت بیخیالی، بیخیالی، بیخیالی. صف به صف به صف، شونه به شونه، رد شدیم از پل انکار، رد شدیم از پل انکار. حالا یک ترانه رودیم به دریاهای بیدار، رودیم به دریاهای بیدار، رودیم به دریاهای بیدار. نانو کارو، نانو کارو آزادی، نانو کارو آزادی، 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 آزادی.
Oh my gosh, that's so amazing. Can I tell you, like when I first started doing flamenco in Vancouver, I don't know,
Yes.
do you remember there was a dancer named Anna Yanis? Anna. Anyways, of course, she made me this CD because I didn't like listen to the music really. I was just like, I'm a dancer, like donkey donk for the first few years. And then I started listening to it, and that there was like some woman singing, like, I don't know who, somebody super famous, I'm sure, singing the Spanish version of that letra, and that was like the one that like spoke to me. Like the melody was just like, it's so beautiful, and it just like, it's just so amazing to hear it like be saying something else, you know?
Song. So just briefly, what it said is that join hands. I can feel the pulse of the city. All we need to do is not be scared and join hands, and our droplets can become the river. And then at the end is Azadi, freedom, 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 freedom's call for freedom, and it gets very intense. It's on my Spotify. I'm gonna put it on my Telegram for my lovelies from Iran because I don't have any access to anything else. But it's all for you guys to use, and
so beautiful, and it's so like incredibly appropriate, obviously.
Healing.
Whose letra is that
The original is
in
Marina
Spain, in
Heredia.
the
So
original?
it's about
Do you
love.
know? Is that is she, this is so
Yes,
ignorant of
she's
me, but
alive. Actually,
is she alive?
she has, I don't think she has, but I tell
Has
you what's
she heard
happening.
it?
I've been sort of for 5 days, I've been posting a different story or a reel, and I list all the women of flamenco from Rocio Malena to, like, Esperanza Fernandez, to her, to, Pastora Galavan, all of them. Buica, so I list them. It's like, this is the fifth day I'm asking the women of flamenco to do something. So the three people who've come through so far has been, is her, just liked one of my stories. And then Pastora has been really lovely. Pastora's following me. So, she's sort of like, this is really cool. I know. I'm like,
Amazing.
oh. So I'm really starstruck. And then a really beautiful conversation this morning with
That's
Rocio
cool.
Molina. And she was saying, I don't want to cut my hair because it's been symbolically, a lot of people are cutting their hair because she's apparently doing this new project where her partner is pulling on her hair with his teeth. Send me a photo of it. It's like, yeah, I don't want to cut my hair. I'm like, no, that's not the point at all. You could do many different things. So we had a little bit of a conversation. So I'm thinking, she responded. Maybe I will send her this song. I was about to post it after maybe our conversation and say, by the way,
You should do that because I mean, I'm sure it'd be like an
at the
incredible
end of
gift to her. I bet you anything, you know?
yeah, yeah,
Moment, it's just like taking her.
to do
Yeah.
back in 2018 when I first sort of started putting it together. In 2020 we did a live recording. I did send it to her, but I didn't hear back. So I'm sure she see it, didn't really care. Otherwise she probably like, don't do it. But
Mhm.
maybe now she would take a different in it. I don't know. But yeah, I'm definitely inspired by her. She's wonderful. She was in Sevilla a couple of days ago and I missed it because I wasn't here. But yeah. So yeah.
Mhm. Well, that was very
Thanks.
beautiful. Thank you for sharing that with us. And thank you for sharing everything with us and for speaking with us today. And for like sharing your story and your art with us and all
Thank you,
of
Lee.
this amazing information that's so important at this particular moment and like going forward in the weeks and months and like year to come, because I think the attention,
Yeah.
as you said, really needs to stay there. So we'll work to push that hashtag with Fab Collab in our little network and tell our friends to do that and keep
Thank
following
you. You
what you
can
guys
even
are
be
up to, what
sneaky
you're up
about it
to, and
and
what
make
other
it
artists are up
super
to.
tiny so nobody has to see it, but it will be there and it will be counted. So you don't even have to like be on a related post of any
Okay.
kind. I mean, comments are different, but if you're posting something, you can just put it there and then it's like super tiny, but it will count and it will become, an incredible hashtag and it will change the world. It already has. Milia, thank you so much for having me. I promised I wouldn't cry and I didn't
Done.
because oh my God, I'm gonna cry for you. But no, no. Try to, it is.
I mean,
The time for
yeah,
tears are
it's a very
over. We're
intense
not scared
time for
anymore. This is
sure.
it. This is it. So yeah. Yeah.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much for joining us from Spain. That's really amazing. And we wish you all the best in all of the work that you're doing there and creating and learning and that. And we'll keep sharing your work through our network. And
You
thank you so much
you
for
could
being
continue
with us
to produce as
today.
well, please. I'm
This has
inspired by you
been,
and your
sorry?
creativity. So proud of you. Proud to know you. It's the truth. Yeah.
Oh, thank you. Well, thank you so much, Farnaz. This has been Curtain Call, presented by Fab Collab and supported by Canadian Heritage. And we'll be back next week with
Thank
another
you.
amazing guest like
Bye.
Farnaz. Thank you so much.
Bye.
We'll see you soon. Bye.